Hi, could you please state your name?
Jen Bernard Walker. Oh, and I'm supposed to say what bands I was in? Okay. I was in Park Ave, and I was also in a band called Magic Kiss, and then most recently I was in a band called Fortnite.
What were your roles in the band?
Every band I've been in, I've played keyboards and sung backup vocals.
How has Omaha changed since you were here?
Okay. How has Omaha changed since I've been around? I moved to Omaha in December of 1997, and so it's been just about 27, no, it's been about 20 years that I've been here. Omaha as a city has grown a lot. I think there's been a lot of development downtown at UNO. There's been a lot of changes just in the way the city itself is laid out. In terms of music, thinking about specifically women in music, I think there's been an increase in the number of women that are in the music scene, that are playing in bands, that are participating daily and weekly, playing shows around town. I think I don't know, it's a little hard to answer because I've grown up, I moved here when I was 22, I'm 42, I have a family, so for me, Omaha has changed because I'm doing different things and focusing on different things.
And where were you born?
I was born in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and when I was 10, my family moved from there to Lincoln, Nebraska, and so I lived in Lincoln, went to college at UNL, and that was where I kind of started becoming involved in music. And Lincoln has a really kind of thriving downtown music scene, and so that was where a lot of the Omaha and Lincoln people would drive back and forth every weekend to do music stuff. So, so I lived in Lincoln until I moved here.
When did you decide to be in a band, or why?
I had played clarinet in school. Actually, I started out with a recorder, then I played clarinet, and I did piano lessons as a kid. I was in the high school band at my school in Lincoln, and always loved music. My dad always loved to sing, my siblings. And so then when I was in college, I was kind of getting to know some people who were musicians, and a group of us decided to start the band Park Ave. And so I hadn't actually really played the piano a whole lot in the 5 years prior to that, but my years of lessons kind of helped me with the keyboard.
Why the name Park Ave?
So when you start a band, there's always hours and hours and hours of conversations about what the band name should be. And to be honest, I don't actually remember exactly how we chose that. I know it was based on the name of the street down off Leavenworth, but I can't remember exactly why we picked it.
And what does indie rock mean to you?
Indie rock to me means music that isn't necessarily supported by a bigger label. So music where the musicians are doing a lot of the work themselves. When I was going through some of my old things, I found a postcard that obviously some band member had gone to Kinko's and photocopied and cut out and sent via the mail to me and probably lots of other people. I remember going to Kinko's and making collages of pictures and then photocopying them and cutting them to fit into the cases of cassette tapes, So to me, it's kind of like a do-it-yourself kind of music where you don't have money or power behind you. You're just doing what you can on your own.
Why Omaha?
For indie music
Or just for your band?
Oh, so Park Ave, let me think. 1, 2, 3. 3 of the members of Park Ave were originally from Omaha, and 2 of them were living in Omaha at the time that we were active as a band. 2 of us were from Lincoln and were living in Lincoln, going to UNL at the time. And so we actually probably played in Omaha more just because the Cog Factory was really active at that time, and we had, there were all ages shows at the Cog Factory. A couple of our band members were still in high school when we were a band, and so that kind of meant that although we could go play at a bar or something, Cog Factory was really nice because it was an all-ages venue.
Could you talk more about the Cog Factory, just the venues that you guys played at?
Mm-hmm. So I think, again, with talking about that kind of doing things yourself mentality, I mean, the Cog Factory was just an old, empty warehouse, and the people who ran it were, at the time, I thought they were much older and wiser, but I think they were probably only a few years older than me. But they just had the time and the energy, and they wanted to have a space where people could go to listen to music. And so I remember one of my favorite memories of the Cog Factory is there were some girls I knew who went to private Catholic schools, and they would go to prom and then come watch bands play wearing their prom dresses. And I just thought that was really cool. So yeah, it was just, I mean, it was just a place for music. There was no alcohol there. There was nothing else to do besides just stand there and listen to music. And that's what people did pretty much every weekend night. I mean, I would always just budget, okay, I'm going to pay $5 to see the show on Friday and $5 to see the show on Saturday, and that was just kind of what everybody did.
Where do you think your highest peak was in any of your bands?
Good question. So I talked about Park Ave. That's the band that I think has the most notoriety because a couple of the musicians who were in that band went on to be in pretty well-known bands. But the one I was in most recently is a band called Fortnight, and that was, we started that in about 2008. And I think that was a really special band because there were 6 of us in it, and we kind of became like a family. I sent Mr. Wendell some pictures of us having like a family dinner together, and I would say, even though we're not a band anymore, we saw like we were all there for each other when one of our band members got married and had a baby, and through different life situations and job situations. And so I think being in a band isn't necessarily just about the music, it's about being creative with people that you love and respect and working really hard together on something and putting a lot of time and energy into it. And you do become a little family. And in this situation, we, with Fortnight, that's actually how I met my husband. So my husband was a band member with me. And so I think that experience of becoming family with that band was probably my highest peak.
Speaking of the band members, in any of your bands, were there other women in them or just you?
Yeah, good question. So in Park Ave, there were 3 of us women. And in Magic Kiss, there were 3 of us women. And then in Fortnite, I was the only one.
So, as a woman yourself, or with your other group, what specific obstacles did you face?
Okay. The obstacles that I faced as a woman in music, I think there's just, not only in music, but in a lot of things in society, there's just this assumption that women are supposed to be the bystanders. I can't tell you how many times I sat on the floor and watched men have band practice or listened to them talk about music. And I had a lot of female friends who were really interested in music and loved music and probably could have played music, but for whatever reason they just didn't. You know, in Park Ave, the two guys who were in the band, they didn't even play the instruments that they played in that band. So like Connor was really a guitarist, and he decided he was going to play drums for Park Ave. And Clark was really a drummer, but he decided he was going to play guitar. And I think there's a societal understanding that men can just say, oh, well, I want to do this. I'm going to do it and I'm going to be good at it. And I don't know if that really exists so much for women. So I think that's a hurdle. I do think things are changing a little bit. In 2011, myself and a couple other people started Omaha Girls Rock, which is a rock camp for girls ages 8 to 18. And there are a lot of really, really amazing female musicians volunteering and working with young kids to encourage them to take risks, try something they haven't tried before, work with other young women. And so I think things are changing. I think you can definitely see a lot more respect for the women who are playing music, and I think it has to be a conscious change, but I think it's changing a little bit.
So how do you think you or your band impacted or changed the Omaha scene?
I'm not sure how me or my band changed the Omaha scene. I think you know, talking with your teachers about finding women who were performing as musicians over the last 20 years or so, I mean, it is kind of hard to find them. And so maybe just the fact that we were doing that is an impact. The two other women who were in Park Ave with me went on to play in a band called Tilly and the Wall, which got some national recognition, and so they did some really cool stuff. But really, I mean, for me personally, the way that I think I've impacted Omaha or young women the most is with Omaha Girls Rock.
So how do you think the #MeToo movement will impact the music industry?
I think the Me Too movement already has and will continue to impact the music industry by acknowledging what women deal with on a day-to-day basis and hopefully supporting them in speaking out against the way that they're treated often, and the way that women can be abused and ignored. So I hope that helps the music industry further change for the better.
So, as this result, do you think more women are going into the music industry?
Do I think more women are going into the music industry? I don't know if more are going into the music industry, or if possibly the music industry is just better able to support them. For example, I just was listening to a radio interview the other day, and there are now organizations that you can call and hire a nanny to travel with you as a touring band. So like if I'm a woman and I have children and my band is traveling, I can hire a nanny to come along and take care of my kids during the time that I'm working. So that wouldn't have been happening 10 or 20 years ago.
How do you feel indie rock treats the minority groups?
I think there's a major problem in indie rock. It is very male and very white. There are token women. There are some token racial minority people playing music in different bands and things. But if you're to look at the vast majority of indie rock music, it's male and white.
How has the indie rock scene changed over the years?
How has the indie rock scene changed over the years? I think technology has changed indie rock a lot. You know, I talked about making photocopies at Kinko's and putting them into tapes and mailing postcards for shows. So, you know, now you can text all your friends, I'm having a show. You can record your music and put it on SoundCloud. Even 10 years ago when my band Fortnite was playing, we actually recorded an album and printed physical CDs. I don't even think people really do that so much anymore, particularly with indie rock. So I think it's changed quite a bit. I think there's obviously different musical influences that change the sound a little bit.
So what women inspired you to go into a band? Or what was that kind?
So when I was in college, that was kind of the peak of the Riot Grrrl movement, and so that movement kind of inspired me. You also interviewed Heidi from Lincoln, and she was a huge influence on myself and my peers. I mean, we even, this is really funny, but she had this particular pair of like mustard colored Converse that we all just thought, oh my gosh, she's just the coolest in the world. But so Heidi, and then there was a band, let me think of the name of it here. Oh gosh, I can't think of the name. There were a couple bands with some, you know, female musicians that were mainstream, that were on the radio, and that I listened to and enjoyed.
So you brought some things over there.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about them?
Sure. Do you want me to like hold them up or? Okay, so this is, I just found this in my basement. Higher? So this is a tape called The Shameless Pursuit of Park Ave. And this was sent to us by a guy named Sid who ran a record label called Uranine Records out of Kansas City. And Park Ave, when we stopped being a band, we decided to just record our music just to have it for ourselves. And so we recorded all of our songs on a 4-track. And then we weren't a band anymore because one of our members had moved to England. But he wanted to put out that music as an album, and so he sent this to us. It says, the A-side tracks are from Uranine artists, both released and upcoming. I think your CD would fit nicely in the catalog. I hope you agree. So that was that. This is the postcard I was talking about. So it has the names of the 4 bands, and then it has where they're playing and what time. And then you can see somebody wrote on there $1 off with this card. And then my address in Lincoln. So I guess grassroots way of getting people to come to your show. These were 2 things that Saddle Creek Records had, and I just had them in a box. But again, when you don't really have the internet, I mean, they did have a website, but when most of your stuff is done through the mail and the phone, if you would buy one CD, they would send ways to order other CDs. So I thought that was kind of cool to see. I also brought, I thought it was important to mention that when you're a musician, you're not just a musician. And so one thing that, so I brought a couple pictures, like this is a botany research camp that I went to in college. So that was during the time that I was active as a band member. In fact, I even drove across Nebraska to play a show and then drove back to continue doing my botany research. I was in a sorority, which a lot of people would think, oh my gosh, somebody who's an indie rock musician would never be in a sorority. But I think it's kind of important to know that you don't just have to be one thing. And then I brought a picture of one of my practicum teaching experiences because I was an English teacher and I'm now a school counselor. And so I've been in education for 20 years. And actually, my passion for my job is kind of what pulled me away from music, because I had to make a decision of, do I want to be a musician and have to tour and focus on that, or do I want to be a teacher and focus on that? And I chose teaching because I love my job. So I brought some pictures. These are Park Ave pictures. Oh, I do have one at the Cog Factory of Park Ave wearing angel and devil costumes. A little hard to see, but yeah, so I'll let you guys hold on to these and look through them a little bit. And then there's some Magic Kiss pictures in here, and they're from the Sokol Underground. You can't really tell, but they are. And then this is the Park Ave album that came out in '99. And then this is the Fortnite album that we released in 2011.
Can you explain a little more about Riot Girl?
So my perception of the Riot Girl movement was simply a group of women who said, we don't have to live by the status quo. We don't have to act how people tell us to act. We don't have to play the kind of music that people tell us to play. We can be who we are and do what we want to do, and do that with strength and supporting one another.
Going back to the OPS and you being a teacher, what do you like most about being a counselor?
Oh, okay. What do I like most about being an educator? I think when I first became a teacher, I just kind of fell in love with not only the community of students, but also the community of teachers. Omaha Public Schools has a really, really strong, diverse community, and I worked at Mars Middle School for a year before they closed and did renovations, and then I worked at North High for 15 years, and I just love working with students. I think high school kids and kids in particular are just very smart. I love learning from them. I love teaching them. And so as an English teacher, I ended up talking with kids a lot about relationships in life. It's kind of a natural, you're teaching Romeo and Juliet, you end up talking about families and relationships. And so I realized I really enjoyed that part. And so that's why I got my counseling degree. And now I've been a counselor for about 8 years. And so I really like that aspect of education because I feel like I can be a support to kids and families and the school, but without grading so many papers.
Does anyone have any other questions?
As far as the bands that you were talking about with the Riot Girl movement, can you just list off a couple off the top of your head? I mean, I vaguely remember it. I mean, I was still in high school, but I mean,
I can't list the particular ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I can look them up and should I? Okay. Okay, cool. They were also the ones who started the girls rock camps across the country.
Okay, cool.
So
I think we definitely.
So